everybody, it's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies. And guess what? We're actually reviewing a movie today. It is part of our Tom Cruise week that's kind of been interrupted because of all the series finales we've had to review, and they've come up and we had to do those. So it got a little interrupted, but today we're doing a fantabulous movie, called The Mummy. Mummy remake, I guess that's what it would be, and it came out in 2017 or 2018. It doesn't matter, but Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe are probably the most notable actors in the movie, at least the most known, and it was kind of, I would call it a stinker. And I didn't think it would be any good, and I was right, and so was Marco. And we didn't see it at the time.
Yeah, in fact, I never wanted to see this movie at all, in any way, because you see the trailers, you saw the set pictures. None of it looked like a horror movie, a monster movie. It all looked like just another shitty modern movie where like everyone looks really pretty, and like even when they're in the middle of the desert, like in these ancient tombs and things, they look like they have these pretty white teeth, and they have this perfect skin, and they have like they computer enhance like their looks. And it's just everything in this movie is fake from top to bottom. And that's what's funny, is that you have these old monster movies like the original Mummy, and all that stuff was real. You know, all that the practical stuff, real people. They didn't have their faces enhanced. They didn't have any sort of computer effects on them. All of that was real. Even though it was a much more like supernatural, over-the-top story, that's what's ironic, is that like back then they put effort into making movies themselves and they didn't rely on computer technology.
Yeah, and I remember when all that computer technology started to be used more and more, and people thought, they were doubting and thinking, well, maybe we shouldn't have all that, because it's not real. And in the end, you'll probably be able to tell that it's not real. And even if you can't tell, you'll know it. You just know it because you know they're doing it. And so I remember when they first started doing that and how there was a lot of doubt. And now, to me, that doubt has really come to fruition, because you can just... I was saying something to Marco, and it's a saying that you've heard this, it's kind of old, is you can't make a purse out of a sow's ear, which means it was a bad movie. The premise behind doing it, he was telling me based on his research, and he'll tell you, was false. And all the computer generated effects isn't going to save a crappy movie. Too bad, but that's just the way it is. And so, Marco, what did your research tell you about the making of this movie, and how it probably contributed to its demise before it even started?
Everyone already knows about that. I mean, it was such a notable failure because they had all these movies planned where they could ruin all the other monsters.
The Universal monsters.
And because they have the copyright, of course, which that's just another example of how certain people should not be allowed to have the copyright to things if they're going to abuse the copyright and turn what the thing is into something that's garbage.
Well, it's too bad they can't just do one and then there's a qualification added to it. They can have a copyright if they make a really good one out of this one.
Well, they created them. That's the unfortunate part. Like, they'll always own the rights to the way that Frankenstein looks, where he has the green and he has the bolts on his neck.
Mm-hmm.
That'll always be their intellectual property. And so they can destroy those characters over and over and over again, and you're just supposed to like it because it's a movie. And you should feel privileged that you get to watch a movie. And it's like, I don't care. Like, honestly, if movies like The Mummy were the only movies in existence, I'd rather just read a book instead. So,
yeah, really.
fuck that. But basically, the infamous story with this movie is that these retards thought that they were going to make some sort of a cinematic universe akin to Marvel Cinematic Universe. And with the monsters, which is hilarious and also ironic because the Universal monster movies were already in a cinematic universe. They already had crossover movies. There were scrapped crossover movies that they didn't even make. Like there was a Dracula versus Frankenstein they didn't make, but they were going to, because they made Frankenstein the Wolfman. They made House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula. They made all those team-up movies, and it's like these fucking jackasses in the modern Universal company, they're just like, oh, who cares about any of that? We care about Marvel and their shitty-ass formula with comedy, like just everything's comedic. Nothing is serious. And everything is like shitty action. And so let's turn horror movies into action comedy movies. Like, what a stupid idea. And what a bunch of talentless hacks who came up with this idea for this universe. And part of the problem is another part of the problem, because there's many parts of this problem, Safi. You know, like when you used to do a word problem on a math assignment, and then they would say, Jenny and George had 10 apples and 10 grapes. George ate 5 apples and 1 grape. How many grape apples do they have left? And then after that, there'd be a second part where it says, uh-oh, a pedophile came in and kidnapped Jenny. How many apples are there left? and then part 3. George decided he wanted a Twinkie. How many grapes did they have left now? And it's like, that's what this is, Safi. Like, after every problem that you talk about with this movie, there comes another part of the problem. Like, there's just infinite parts of this huge problem. Which the main issue is that this movie had no business being made the way that it was, or just in general. Because the people who made the movie, they don't like horror movies. They don't care about horror movies.
No.
All they cared about was
copying somebody else's work.
The Mummy is The Mummy, and maybe people will go see The Mummy to see another Mummy movie. That's what they cared about. Like, that's all they cared about. They did not care about, we should improve on the old Mummy movies, because, Safi, let's just be honest. Boris Karloff's Mummy is a snooze fest. It's boring and dull. The only good part of it is the opening scene where the mummy's standing there and he wakes up and kills that guy writing on the scroll or whatever the fuck he was doing. That was the only good part in that entire boring ass movie.
It was kind of boring, yeah.
And then the sequel. Well, I mean, there was like 5 sequels, and it was like the mummy's hand, the mummy's prostate. I mean, the mummy's tomb, the mummy's fucking bandages. Like, they made all these sequels. Sorry about that. But all the sequels were pretty dull as well. In fact, from what I remember, I only really liked one sequel, which was the last one, where Lon Chaney Jr. played the mummy. And I don't know why I liked that one, but I thought it was short and sweet. It still wasn't very good. And when you think about Universal monster movies, the Mummy movies are like at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. Nobody really even talks about them. They talk about Dracula,
Frankenstein.
Basically.
They talk about the fucking Werewolf of London before they talk about the Mummy.
Oh, and the werewolf, yeah.
Like, they're actually, like, if you look on Facebook, there's a Universal Monster movie group, and one of the main people in that group is someone related to the main actor in Werewolf of London, and he is very active on that group. And so, people who like it just shows that they don't even know their own fans. They don't know or care about their own fans. The people who pay money to see this movie. You know, when Tom Cruise... And that's what's surprising. When Tom Cruise made Top Gun 2, it was a movie specifically designed for people who liked the original. Or people just in general who were fans of the original in any way. The whole movie was designed around the fans.
Yeah.
And with this movie, it's like the whole movie is just designed around the toilet.
Well, it was designed around somebody else's ideas for some other kind of project that didn't fit into what they were doing. Instead of making an original and with what fans would like, or anybody with a brain would like, they made up they just tried to copy. They're copying Marvel. And Universal Monsters isn't a comedy. And they even got, and I very much apologize to the actor they brought in who was playing kind of like alongside Tom Cruise. It was kind of like his partner in a way, and he's a TV actor, and he's very good, and he's very funny, and he did a good job. In fact, he played him, what he usually plays. Somebody who's serious sometimes, and also somebody who could be funny.
He was a cornball.
Yep, and that's, I'm sure he was welcome to work, because it was something that he's not used to doing, that's for sure.
Well, I don't care, Safi. I don't care about his fucking paycheck.
Yeah,
I care about the quality of the fucking movie.
Well, I know.
And this is one of the worst movies we've ever seen.
It was terrible, and it's, we've watched a lot of monster movies.
Yeah.
Old ones, all the way up to now.
And let's explain, like, the trajectory of the Mummy series. Like, you had the Universals, then you had Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, which was also not very good.
But was that the one where that guy did that, he talked about the,
no, Safi.
I don't know, I really liked one of them.
I was getting to that before you rudely interrupted me, like usual.
Okay,
Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy was a reflection on all the other Mummy movies because of how trash it was. Like, what were the biggest iconic moments in that movie? Like, you had the scene where the fat one Blue Blabbit or Abbott which one was that?
It's Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, right?
Was Lou the fat one? Because Lou is more of like a fat person's name.
I don't know.
Like, Bud sounds like a radio host.
No,
or
I think
like
Bud.
Really?
Bud was.
Lou, I don't know. Well, okay, the fat one, there was like this really weird scene where he like spanked like a statue or something. Like, remember that, Safi? Where there was like a wax figure of of an Egyptian woman, and he spanked her, and then it turned out she was real, and she got really upset, and that was pretty funny. That was a very memorable thing from that movie. And then near the end, there was a scene where they're like, "You gotta pick the pick, you know, pick the pick, pick which pick you get it, pick you pick." That was another great scene. Other than that, the movie was complete garbage, and it was boring and trash, and there wasn't really any tributes to the other Mummy movies because they're all trash too. And then, you look at Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. They didn't even put the Mummy in that movie because he's not very good. Because they didn't make very good Mummy movies. Like, they included all the other monsters. They even included the Invisible Man at the end of the movie, Vincent Price. And then they did Meet Invisible Man. They did Meet Dr. Jekyll. They never did Meet, they did do Meet the Mummy, but it was trash. After that, they did The Hammer Mummy, with Christopher Lee playing the Mummy, and Peter Cushing was in it. That movie was okay. That had the thing. Safi, what was the thing that you love? It's just the greatest thing ever.
Well, there was just this one person who really wasn't one of the main actors. He probably had like more of a supporting role.
Well, I think he was an evil guy. He was like working with the Mummy in some way.
But he did this like monologue speech, and it was really one of the best things I've ever heard, and it really fit in with the movie, and it was really good. And
it was some sort of lecture about how, like, I don't know, like, you think you're something, but then you take all these artifacts from places where you shouldn't be taking them from, or something like that. I don't know. But it had something to do with just taking things that you shouldn't be taking.
Right.
Things that you should not be putting in museums or putting... Because I think he was talking in, like, this guy's house, and his personal house is just full of all these artifacts that weren't given to him as gifts, but he just took them.
Yeah,
and
that's bad.
So that was good. And then there was also a scene in that movie where this guy was in an asylum, and they thought that he was crazy because he was saying that the mummy came to life, and there was a part where the mummy broke in through the window, and he was screaming, and everyone could hear his screaming, the mummy killing him, but they thought, oh, he's crazy, who cares? And that was actually a really effective scene. And other than that, though, it wasn't very good. It was okay.
It was average.
And we haven't watched any of the sequels of the Hammer Mummies, which, oh God, wouldn't that be like? I think they do female mummies in their sequels, like, or something.
Probably, because they're really good with that.
They probably had them be like topless and stuff, like.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look, I'm the mummy, I'm very scary. And then they're just these topless women with, like, snakes crawling all over them or something, like, really weird. But it's fine because it's Hammer. And then after that, so you have the Mummy movies, they were kind of not doing very well. And then you had the Brendan Fraser Mummy, which was fantastic.
It was really good. I know how they did it. when they came from, what Marco just described,
trash,
was a lot of nothing.
Yeah.
And really more nothing than something. And they were entertaining. There was action.
There was lots of horror stuff in the first one.
Lots of horror, lots. And there was humor. They had the whole thing. And it was all balanced out.
Everything you could want.
Yeah,
and
it was exciting.
Brendan Fraser was the perfect star of the film.
Yeah, he was.
He's so much better than Tom Cruise. It's not even funny.
God. I know.
And so the first Mummy with Brendan Fraser, incredible masterpiece. And so that was really shocking that, like, oh wow, they finally learned how to make a mummy movie.
And it was really, I don't know when it came out of the year, but I'm sure wasn't it a summer blockbuster?
I don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, it's the perfect, when they say a blockbuster is coming out, it really was the epitome of a blockbuster.
Well, it was an event.
Yeah, and they've forgotten how to do that nowadays.
No, because
I don't know what's
nowadays
happened.
they just want to have politics, and that's all they care about.
I don't know, but they don't know how to do it.
And
Yeah.
their affirmative action casting, and their affirmative action.
No, it's affirmative action.
Crew.
It's just dumb action. It's nonsensical. I don't even know how the actors can keep a straight face. But I mean, they want to be paid and they need a job, but still, it doesn't make sense. It's like a mathematical problem they tried to solve and they put the wrong answer. And it just, and the thing is, they forgot, what kills me, and it's really kind of hard to believe, they've forgotten how to do what a blockbuster is, what it really means. They have these, like they just did this Jurassic Park.
Well, I don't want a blockbuster anymore. I don't like blockbusters.
Well, I do. It's fun. It's like
but
an
they
event.
Suck. They're like
Well, that's
they're like
because nowadays.
they're low grade versions of epic movies from the 40s.
I mean, when Jurassic Park, the very first one came out, that was like a blockbuster. And then Jaws, when that came out, that was a blockbuster.
Yeah, I'll
E.T.
take.
came out,
I
that
will-
was a blockbuster.
I'll take classic movies over blockbusters, and
Well, as long as it's all good,
yeah.
that's what matters.
But
and
then-
none of it's been very good.
Then The Mummy Returns came out, and that was kind of okay. The reason why I really didn't like that film was because, number one, I think they had the stupid ass Scorpion King in it.
They
with-
did.
The Rock.
Yeah.
Ugh, gross.
did.
They had that buffoon in there, and then they had like a kid, and he was like this annoying kid character, and the sequels, and then the third one, I didn't even watch the third one because
It was
they
like
recast-
the Scorpion King, wasn't it?
that was a spin-off.
Um,
And that's
I
not
guess
even
it's
worth
something I
talking
didn't
about.
watch. I must not have seen whatever else.
But you remember, then they made the third Mummy, like the Rise of the Dragon King or whatever the fuck that was.
I don't know.
And it was like, and they recast Rachel Weisz because she
Oh.
had a kid.
Oh.
So we both didn't want to watch it at all.
Oh, okay.
And that one wasn't very good, regardless, from what I hear. So after that, they just kind of gave up because they got to focus on their agendas and their politics and making everyone a woman or black or trans or whatever the fuck their new agenda is.
For
The
the
next
week.
day, yeah. And then
Agenda of the week.
they finally decided, let's make another Mummy movie. But this time we'll have Tom Cruise. The 58-year-old Tom Cruise. Wow. He's a star. And then you watch the movie and it's like, ugh. Ugh.
You know, he's great in Mission Impossible. He was, I haven't seen it yet, that new Top Gun movie. That has been I mean, everybody, even Marco, has said nothing but positive things about it. And they really liked it. In fact, Marco said that and we talked about this in review, they improved on the faults that
Yeah.
plagued the first one. So it was about 1,000 times better than the first one. So if you weren't really like the first one, you would really love the latest one. In fact, that, if you want to call something a blockbuster, that has been the blockbuster movie and the most liked movie and the best movie of the summer.
Well, that's because it doesn't have any agendas.
And yeah, and the person, and what was really good, we have talked about this in TV shows, we've talked about this for movies. The person who did this movie, that Cruise
The Mummy.
Top Gun, that guy, he paid attention to detail, and he watched that first movie, and he saw all the faults with it, and he said, how can I make the second one better? Well, I can not do this, and he had a whole thing, and he actually paid attention to detail.
I can give the movie an actual plot.
Yeah, and so that is a key. If you want to make a good TV show, you want to make a good movie, you have to pay attention to the details. You don't have to make it boring, because we've seen that too, where it's unedited and they just put everything in but the kitchen sink. They left everything in but the kitchen sink because I guess they thought they better get all their bases covered. Don't have to do that.
But anyway, stop it. Let's not talk about a movie you haven't seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie.
We're talking about The Mummy.
But we will be getting to that.
Well, you will. I'm not talking about the movie again.
I will be getting to it.
The Mummy, it was made by, I don't know how it came to be. Like, I don't know who first pitched it, but the executive producer, he is the same guy. I can't remember if I already talked about it in this video. He's the same guy who did The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
No, you haven't, yeah.
And he also did the Clarice show, where there's no Hannibal, even though they own the rights to the character. And then I think they did some other weird thing. It was really weird, and it was just an agenda show where it's like, oh look, there's a woman and she faces discrimination. Wah wah wah. And then he also, this talentless fuck, Alex Kurtzman, he also did the Star Trek movies, and he did Star Trek Discovery and all these new shitty piece of shit fucking Star Trek shows that are some of the worst things that have ever been made in history. And this talentless fucking faggot does not deserve to be making any movies or TV shows whatsoever. And all he cares about is agendas and ruining properties that are already existing. And I think that he needs to be fully gotten rid of in Hollywood, because everything he does is trash. He's a trash person. He has trash ideas. He's not creative. He has no talent. And I hate everything about him, and I hate this movie. And this movie is, it's horrible. And I thought maybe it could be enjoyable in like a fun, bad way. And it was not in any way enjoyable. And I put it near the bottom. I put it below Twilight. That's how bad it was. Along with Top Gun. It was so bad. And the people who made the movie should all be ashamed of themselves. In fact, if I were in the movie, I would want my name to be removed from the film out of embarrassment for this, if you could even call it a film. So, Safi, what do you have to say about the movie?
Well, the thing is, they came up with this idea that was the premise of the movie, and it was spastic and bizarre. It was like jagged. It's like somebody dropped 2 or 3 different glasses, and they all broke or they shattered all over the ground. And then you thought, oh, I'm gonna put one together. And you picked up pieces, and so they had these different ideas, and they were different, but they just didn't. I mean, one of them was like they were going to get all these mummies and make them come to life and be like an army or something. I don't know. I'm not even sure if that's correct, but I knew they wanted to get these mummies and bring them to life. And then they were trying to make, we weren't sure what was going on. There's 3 like main stars plus the bad girl mummy who was a killer and evil. And
yeah, there's like this feminazi agenda story where it's like, oh, there was this female who wanted to rule. And she had to kill all the evil men because they wouldn't let her rule.
Well, she killed a baby, and she killed a woman, and
well,
she killed
the
her
baby,
dad.
the baby was probably going to grow up to be a toxic man, so she had to kill him too. She should have been able to kill him inside of herself via Egyptian abortions. Did Egyptians give themselves abortions?
I don't know.
Safi?
I don't know why we're talking about abortions.
Because she could have killed the baby earlier.
Okay, Marco, that's really disgusting.
Well,
okay, well,
that's
anyway.
her character, and so they have this.
She's bad.
They have this plot where, like, it's like, oh, wah. They wanted to erase her from the history book. Oh no!
They say that.
But it's like, you know what's funny is that this whole movie is an example of why it was a good idea to remove her from the history books.
So they want to, their idea is to bring all these mummies back to life? I don't know, it's really odd. And then out of these three characters that were actually, it was Tom, and then you had his buddy, who was the comic guy from TV.
The Beta.
And then you had this girl
and
who
then
was
you had,
an archaeologist.
And then you had the boring, ugly, blonde woman.
She was
and
very young, and there's a thing about
she's
that.
so bad. Like, she's like, the whole movie, and keep in mind, guys, like, this movie's PG-13 because they didn't have the balls to make it rated R, of course. You can't make a rated R movie nowadays.
Oh my God.
They didn't have the balls to make a rated R mummy. So they made this shitty, pussified PG-13 movie.
Oh, you're really
and children,
winning with your...
because children are supposed, it's PG-13, so kids can go see it. And this entire movie, you have this fucking blonde bimbo bitch, and she's just walking around saying, Tom Cruise can only do it for 15 seconds. Eh! And that is a running joke throughout the entire movie. Safi, remember that?
Yeah.
Why is that in a PG-13 movie for the kids can see?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's like they picked up all these pieces off the ground. They tried to put something together, and they didn't know what they were doing. And, I mean, what could you do? You have 3 different pieces of glassware and different colors, different shapes, different etchings, and all kinds of stuff on them, and you're trying to put those together in a semblance of a story and a movie, and it did not work. And this idea that they had about, and it was Russell Crowe, and Russell Crowe was supposed to be...
We'll get to Russell Crowe. We're on the woman right now. We're on the
is,
love interest, and let's talk about his romance with her. His romance consists of her saying, "You're selfish. All you care about is yourself, and you're a bad man. You're a toxic man, Tom Cruise." and then he's like, "It was not 15 seconds. You are misremembering things." And she's like, "It wasn't real, though." And it's like, that's their romance. That's a modern 2022 romance. Is, you only were, it only happened for 15 seconds. No, it didn't. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. That's this movie's idea of romance, Safi. What do you think of that? So, I mean, isn't that kind of gross?
Well, and also, one thing people complained about now, I didn't think about that. The movie is so bad that you can't even get, for me, you couldn't even get to the next step, and this is what people talked about. Was the age difference between him and her.
Who cares about that? Who cares?
And the bad mummy girl.
Who cares?
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Who cares?
I didn't even think about that because...
They're different in age. Who cares?
The movie was so bad.
Why even bring it up?
Because it was a big talked about thing.
Well, it's not talked about for me.
Not me either.
We're talking about the romance, the dialogue. You only were in me for 15 seconds. No, it was longer than that. Like, that's a 2022 romance, Safi. Would Elizabeth Taylor have done that scene, Safi? No.
Way.
Would what's another actress from the olden days?
Betty Davis?
Would Betty Davis have done that, Safi?
No way.
No. So there you go. Like, it just shows how, and there's a lot of like hypocrisies within this movie in terms of that. Like, we can make jokes about premature something, but then we can't show a fully nude woman. We can only show a fully nude man. And that comes with another issue in the film, is that Tom Cruise, 60-year-old Tom Cruise, he's naked this movie for like the entire movie. He's either wearing like this ugly ass black shirt, which you're never supposed to wear black in a movie like this much, like to the point like he's a good guy, right? Like, usually villains wear darker clothing.
Well, plus
than
there was
heroes.
a lot shot in the dark.
Yeah.
And why would you wear black in the dark
In the
unless
dark.
it was a special scene where
Dark
you're
tombs, dark
robbing
forests.
something?
You think about like Brendan Fraser. What did he wear? He wore like a white shirt. He wore like, what kind of pants were they? Like beige pants.
Canvas pants.
He had these like
Khaki.
brown gun holsters and like a brown belt or something. And he looked like a hero. And then the Mummy was darker. The Mummy had like this dark lighting on him to make him look mysterious and evil, and he looked kind of blue and gray, and oh god, you just completely ruined the video.
Let's go to the bathroom.
I don't care. You just touched the camera for no fucking reason. Yeah, you did. And so sorry for that, everybody. I don't know why she has no regard for the filming equipment. But anyways, this movie, it exposes another modern hypocrisy with nudity, of course. Because another thing that's happened in movies is that in the olden days, you had this big thing where people complained. And they had temper tantrums and they had crying fits about how women weren't allowed to be nude in movies. And women weren't allowed to do sexy scenes in movies. And then, as time went on, they decided, you know what, we should actually let them do that because then people will like the movies more. And they'll be a lot more entertaining and the actresses will probably be a lot more famous. And now we have gotten to the point where we're going backwards again. And instead of allowing women to be nude in films, we're saying, no, they can't do that anymore. They have to cover up to protect from male gaze. Yet in this movie, Tom Cruise, he's naked like the entire fucking movie. And whenever there's a female character who has any sort of nudity, they edit it to where it's like all black and you can't see anything, black and blurry and out of focus, in the distance, far away, and it's like you can see the hypocrisy here of we can show a fully naked man, adult man in a PG-13 movie. We can make it a joke. We can make it something where like, ooh, look, the females are oogling him. But then if we do the same thing for a woman, we can't do that. No, we can't do that at all. And so this movie, it has no equal nudity. It's just fully Tom Cruise, the entire movie. And that just shows another problem that they refuse to fix or remedy. And then the main female character, the entire movie, she wears this like conservative clothing where she's like long sleeved shirt and she wears like long pants. And then you have Tom Cruise, he's got a shirt and his shirt is like opened so you can see like his chest the entire movie. And it's like, this is very it's kind of gross. Like, it's like you'll do one but you won't do the other, right, Safi?
Yeah, it's stupid,
Did you-
unfair,
did you-
discriminatory.
Did you
and-
notice that? Like, did you notice like how the females, whenever they were in scenes nude, they would like blur it out,
I
or
don't
they
even
would.
know if they were really naked or not.
But
Anyway,
The Mummy was, and like a couple like glimpses, and you couldn't even tell because they edited it to where you couldn't see. Because you can't do that for a woman nowadays. You can only do that for men.
which is what? Head scratching.
Very weird.
Very weird, stupid, idiotic.
So, that's the nude problem. So we've gone through the terrible romance. We've gone through the nude problem. The script itself is just a giant disaster. I mean, I guess if you printed out the script, it would make good toilet paper. But other than that, there's nothing good in this entire script. If you could even call it a script, the dialogue was just completely expository, amateurish dialogue where all the characters are just explaining the movie. They're like, you're a thief who steals items and then you sell them on the black market. How does it feel, Tom Cruise? Well, I am the hero of the story, and so I feel very good, but I am not a bad man. You are a bad man, Tom Cruise. By the way, there is a mummy in a tomb below us, and her name is and she came from the ancient kingdom of Kukuracha, and she killed a bunch of people in the year 1600 because she was fending off an army of anteaters, and she also wore pink all the time, so she was a very progressive mummy, and she also liked to throw birthday parties, so she was kind of like Mrs. Eisenhower, and her husband, she killed her husband, and it's like, that's the entire movie, is these shitty, if you could even call them characters, just explaining everything. Like, you're so dumb and stupid that you can't, like, they don't know how to tell visual stories anymore. So they just tell you through shitty dialogue
Which makes no sense. It's video.
spoken by their sellout actors who chose to act in this shitty movie.
But that's what video is for. Video is supposed to show you things that you couldn't, I mean, I read a ton of books. I read a new book like every few days because there's a lot of words. Words tell description. Words tell the story. Words tell dialogue. But in a video, in a movie, you can show those things. You don't have to say. You just show.
There's a rule. It's called
what
show, not tell.
That's what it's for. That's what video is for. And I mean, I've heard some things on TV where there's been these pages and pages and pages of dialogue and story where nothing happens, and they're either talking on the telephone or somebody's just talking to somebody else, and they're sitting in a room or a car or whatever, and they're just talking. That's like half of the movie or half of the show or whatever. That's ridiculous.
Just the opening scene was enough to make me want to vomit. Well, of course you had the exposition scene with Russell Crowe, and after he ate his daily donuts, he talked about this stupid mummy that no one cares about. And then you had this really goofy, dumb scene where Tom Cruise and his friend are talking, and he cuts his friend's water bag, and he says, "You want more water, you have to go to the town and get it." And it's like, that's just so, oh God. Like, Safi, just think about Better Call Saul, Bagman. Just think about, what if Mike had cut Saul's water? Like, that would have been the stupidest thing ever. And they did that in this movie, unironically. as some sort of a joke. Ha ha ha! I didn't laugh once throughout the entire movie. There wasn't a single good shot in the entire movie either. Like, was there a good shot in this entire movie, Safi? No.
I don't think so.
Because the people who made this movie, they're not talented enough to tell a visual story. Because they're too busy relying on their shitty sellout actors to read their shitty script lines that were written by people who were overpaid. So the next element of the movie that we will dissect is the friend. And obviously, I have not seen An American Werewolf in London.
I haven't either.
But I saw clips, and they deliberately plagiarized that entire element of the film, where in that movie his friend dies, and then the rest of the movie he's like a zombie hallucination.
And that's what the comic actor turned out to be.
So that was plagiarism. Plagiarism is bad, Safi. You can get in a lot of legal trouble for plagiarism, especially if you plagiarize Frankenstein. Like, you know how fast Universal would be if someone made a Frankenstein. In fact, when they made Curse of Frankenstein, they had to deliberately change the way he looked as much as possible to make sure that he did not look anything like the Universal Boris Karloff Frankenstein. And because Universal would have sued them. And so why is it that Universal, plagiarized American Werewolf in London?
I don't know.
Why not, Safi? Why don't you know?
Why would I know that?
Because you have to know everything. Because you're the co-host.
It doesn't matter. I don't know that because they thought they could get away with it. That would be the obvious thing. And the second thing, they thought it would be entertaining.
I don't like plagiarism.
And 3, it would help the movie.
I don't like plagiarism.
Well, I don't either, and it's not necessary either.
And so then the next element that we will dissect is Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll.
It's Dr. Jekyll, and Marco knows that.
It's Dr. Jekyll.
He's just teasing.
No, there's actually a real thing where it's supposed to be pronounced Dr. Jekyll.
Oh, jeez.
In the original story.
No.
But everyone's pronounced it Jekyll. Which sounds better. It sounds better, but it's supposed to be Dr. Jekyll.
Oh, maybe it's because of a British accent. That I have to do.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think.
And so Russell Crowe's terrible. I don't know who asked for a fat Dr. Jekyll. And thank God he's never naked in the movie, because that would have been like a ultimate, I'm turning this movie off.
Oh. You don't have to be mean and personally attack Russell Crowe.
Why? They're the ones who hired a fat Dr. Jekyll.
I don't care.
I never asked for a fat Dr. Jekyll.
I don't know why Dr. Jekyll's in. That's a whole different movie series. I don't understand that. I didn't even know his name was Dr. Jekyll.
Safi, did you see they did the Amazing Spider-Man 2 thing where they showed like these artifacts from other movies, like they showed a creature from the Black Lagoon hand in a jar, and then they showed Dracula's skull in a jar. And so this Dr. Jekyll character, he's in charge of an organization like S.H.I.E.L.D. and Marvel.
Yeah.
And he's killed monsters, and he's the ultimate master of all the supernatural. Yet in this movie, he makes some of the most stupid decisions ever. Like, he's probably the dumbest character in the entire movie besides the writer and director and producers and all the other people who made the movie. Dr. Jekyll is the stupidest character. And he's terrible as Dr. Jekyll. He makes stupid decisions. And he even makes, like, a decision for no reason where he doesn't inject himself fast enough, so he becomes Mr. Hyde. And as Mr. Hyde, these fuckers were too lazy to do practical makeup, which is what the old Universal monster movies are known for.
Yeah.
And so they just computer generated his face to look kind of, uh, I don't know,
Distorted.
distorted.
And like the bad guy. But I don't know, I thought he was bad even when he was a good guy, so I don't get it.
Well, that's because he's a toxic man. And so his character was complete trash, another giant waste of time, and a giant. And then last but not least, is the Mummy. And obviously, we all knew that in 2017 they would never make a man mummy movie because men bad. So, of course, they had to have a woman mummy, and the whole point of her is that she's a love interest too. Because I guess, like, all she can be is a love interest, even though it's like. So it's like more conflicting stuff with that. Her character is evil, and she's just a generic villain, and her look is terrible with like the writing on her face. Like she looks kind of like a Burning Man person, like, you know, someone who attends Burning Man festival every year. Like, that's what she looks like. She doesn't even look like a mummy. And she's a terrible villain. She's not frightening at all. You know, because she's a woman. She's not physically intimidating.
Well, now Marco has got to remember that in Brendan Fraser's movies there was a mummy girl and a mummy man.
Yeah, but they
The
still
mummy man
had
had
a mummy man though, Safi. I
He
mean,
had the bigger part.
remember
yes.
the original series? The whole point of the series was that you had a giant, towering man mummy, and he would tower over people and strangle them to death.
Right.
You can't do that with a woman because women aren't physically capable of doing that unless they're like Amazonian tall women. And
Right.
actually, it actually is too bad that they didn't cast like a 7 foot tall. Like, we go to the gym. Well, Safi doesn't go to the gym anymore. I go to the gym 3 times a week, and for years we've seen this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of looks like a Viking in Skyrim.
And she's big. She has blonde hair,
and she's like 8 feet tall.
She's just missing the braids and the flowers.
She's muscular, and she looks like she could be an intimidating mummy.
Yeah, she would. That would be the kind of actress that you would have, not this petite little girl who's really young.
And I would have been fine with that too. So I'm just saying the person that they cast for this role, as Safi said, she's petite, and she's young, and she's not physically intimidating in any way.
No.
Because they didn't want her to be. They wanted her to be like a love interest character for Tom Cruise. So that he could have a 15-second date with her at the end. And then there's this whole stupid thing where there's like a dagger with a stupid plot MacGuffin stone. That's all a giant waste of time. You know, pretty much everything in this movie is a waste of time. I mean, and this movie, you know what it reminded me of? Was it reminded me of Jurassic World Dominion. Because it had all the same problems. Jurassic World didn't have any dinosaurs in it. Like, the movie hardly has any dinosaurs in the movie. Even though it's fucking 2 hours.
Oh my god.
This movie, it didn't have really any mummy in the movie. Even though it's 2 hours. And it also did the modern action movie thing where I called it in Jurassic World, it's like a big budget triathlon where you have all these characters and, oh no, there's a bad guy coming for us in some shape or fashion. We have to go swimming. Ooh, we're swimming. We're doing our swimming part. And then they go on the beach. Oh no, we have to run from the bad guy. Oh no. and then they're in a plane and they do like a skydiving event. Oh no, we have to get out of the plane. Ah! Oh no, we have to run through the forest now. Ah! And then, of course, the hero always wins the big budget triathlon. And that's this movie. I mean, wouldn't you say that's what it was like, Safi? With, like, doing all these sporting activities and stuff? Like, just, oh no, we have to run there. Ooh, we have to run there to that location to get that.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no.
That's what it was like.
Yeah.
But they're just, that's why it's so basic and just boring, and it's just it's almost egregious.
It is.
They did.
It is.
By making this movie, because if they weren't going to do a good job, they shouldn't have done it at all. And if they thought they were doing a good job, I question their sanity and their mental acuity. Because, and it was said too that the director, that Kurtzman, that Marco mentioned, that he really kind of almost knew that he was in over his head, and
no, he was just a complete disaster.
he was flailing.
So Tom Cruise, took control of the movie.
Yeah.
And tried to save it.
So, even though I don't care for Tom Cruise personally,
He knew he was in a bad movie.
At least he tried to help.
Yeah.
And, kudos to him. I mean, he has been in the movie business for a long time. He just hasn't done many movies like this, and really isn't very experienced, but he does know about showing and not telling and things like that, because he's been in movies where they showed, didn't tell, and he knows what that's about, and they all, I'm sure everybody, you can just tell, even if you're not experienced, you probably could tell that these people didn't know what they were doing, who were making the movie, the ones in charge, and you're probably like, what do you do? And, since they haven't been around as long as Tom Cruise, except for Russell Crowe, I guess, none of them, the TV guy, I don't know how many movies he's made. I don't know if he's made that, if this was his only movie. I'm probably totally mistaken. Maybe he's made others, but not that many. And then these girls, the archaeologist girl, she's
in his shitty Star Trek, too.
Oh, okay. And then
so he likes her.
And then the little girl who plays the bad mummy girl.
She's very popular.
Is she?
She's very popular nowadays, but she's complete garbage.
But they don't have the clout and the standing and the knowledge and experience to try to save a movie. And so, we were debating that earlier before we did the review, whether, should Tom Cruise have even tried to save it, or should he just let it totally fail?
I think he should have let it fail and then also sabotaged it as well.
It sabotaged itself.
But in a good way, like where he should have given like an over-the-top goofy performance.
Oh.
Like where every line, like Neil, like Mr. Fateful Findings. I mean, wouldn't that have been funny if Tom Cruise did that? That would have actually improved the movie to do that. To purposefully give a bad performance.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's kind of unethical. But
why?
As an actor,
it's a shitty movie.
He'd
still get his little paycheck. It's so important. He still get his little paycheck. So why not?
Don't these people have some kind of code or something?
Yeah, but the
code of honor.
The people that fucking loser Kunstman who made the movie doesn't have any code of honor, so who cares?
Yeah, I don't know.
So, what would you rate the movie in terms of food?
I'd just give it an F.
No, in terms of food.
Oh, well, I would give it an F, though, if I could. Well, boy, last night we had some barbecue, and Marco had, I don't even know what you had, but he got Chili's, food from Chili's. And last time I ordered food from Chili's, I participated in the order, meaning I ordered some food too. It was all burned up and melted, and it was like, if that had been a master chef, that would have been one of those plates that Gordon Ramsay and would have thrown in the trash or thrown on the floor, or if they were outside at one of their group challenges, he would have thrown it in the sand.
Yeah.
And so that's what that movie was like. It was supposed to be nachos, and I should have taken a picture.
It was like a puddle of cheese. It was like a puddle of garbage.
Cheese. And it was garbage. I mean, it was like you had intended to make a really good dish, and you cooked it, and you burned it to pieces. And it wasn't to pieces, it was just a puddle. And because it has not, the chips are harder, so they all melted together into like a big plate. A plate of garbage. I'm just thinking about it. Why didn't I take a picture of it? Because it's just like, I'm not even doing it justice by my own description. A picture would have, like we're talking about anyway.
Yeah,
a video, show, not tell. Because you wouldn't believe that they actually gave that to me and charged me for it. I should have gotten my money back. Because really...
Yeah, she never bothers to, complain or anything.
I don't like confronting unless
there's
I
been
get
multiple
really
times now where they have, at KFC, given her drinks that have spilled all over the car.
2 times
and her.
At least. Yeah.
And she's just like, whatever. I'm not going to complain.
It's almost the only place I like to eat their food.
Matter.
That's why I don't want to complain.
They need to have complaints. Okay.
Well, I just hate to do that to a place where it's about the only fast food place that I like.
You like Steak and Shake, Safi.
No, I don't. I really don't. I don't like that. And,
well, there's nowhere that's good around here to eat.
We live in a desert. And we don't live in a desert. We do not live in Las Vegas where it's 118 degrees. But it's like a desert here in terms of getting food. Because there just isn't much to pick from. So anyway, go ahead, Marco. I can't wait to hear what you give it as your food review.
I'm going to copy food that you ate in the past that I never ate because, remember, I never wanted to watch this movie in the same way you never wanted to watch Top Gun. So I figured we both watched something we never wanted to watch.
Okay.
Which I also never wanted to watch Top Gun either. But there was this time where we went to a hotel in Chicago, and Safi ordered biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
And it was...
I make biscuits, and we make biscuits and gravy here. It's so simple. It really isn't rocket science.
Even a little kid could make biscuits and gravy.
And whoever did this biscuits and gravy, I did review them, and
yeah.
I told them, I said I would be happy to come into the kitchen and help you.
She told the waitress, what is this? This is not how you make biscuits and gravy. And the waitress was like, sorry.
Maybe she didn't know.
And what was wrong with this? It was nothing like biscuits and gravy. It was so gross.
It was another puddle.
Oh.
I think it was I don't know.
It's a puddle.
I can't even remember. I should go back and look, because it's probably still online unless they erased it. Because this was several years ago, but
Maybe the chef only spent 15 seconds making it.
I don't know who made it. The janitor must have made it. One of the cleaning people.
Janitor.
But they probably know how to cook better than whoever cooked this. Really. Because biscuits and gravy, if there's anybody out there that hasn't had it, I'm sorry. I apologize. Biscuits are real easy to make. In fact, I can make biscuits. I don't even have to look at a recipe. I have it memorized. And the gravy, it's it's so simple. It's just, I'm not going to describe it. All I'm saying is that.
But it was nothing like biscuits and gravy.
And it was really, I think it was overly spicy too.
Oh yeah, it had like spicy sauce, like Tabasco and stuff, and to the point of where she couldn't really eat it.
No, and so I paid for nothing, and I just was so, I was just like a complete disbelief
I
that
warned
somebody
her.
could screw up
I
that
told her,
badly.
Safi, get pancakes. She's like, no, I want biscuits and gravy. Then Robert can have some too. And it's like, and then it was like a.
And we've been at other hotels where they have the breakfast thing and they have biscuits and gravy and they don't seem to have any trouble.
In the same way that I looked at her biscuits and gravy, I looked at this movie without having watched it, and I said, this is not how you make a mummy movie. This is not acceptable. I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to accept it. That's what I said. And it's the same thing with this biscuits and gravy. Is that they did not even make biscuits and gravy. So, anyways.
Alright, well, we've trashed it. I think we've trashed it enough. We have one more to do.
No, two more. We have American Made.
I keep forgetting about the Top Gun movie. I don't know why. I guess because I never thought I would watch it.
Well, it's because only you're going to watch it. I'm not watching it.
That's right. Marco's already seen it. But even, I have another YouTube person who I watch who's from Japan. Her name is Nami.
Safi,
and she even said she was going to go see it. So I'm like, wow,
I bet she is, Safi.
No, she probably will. And anyway, so I'm going to have to watch it. So we do have two. It's American Made, which I just saw yesterday, but I had seen it before.
And it was very good.
It is good. And I just, these are two Tom Cruise movies, okay? So we're finishing out the Tom Cruise, quote, week. And
as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's just the fact we've had all these series that have
like
come
Tom
to an
Cruise.
end. And that's another thing we don't really
I want to move on as fast as possible from Tom Cruise.
Yeah, but guess what he wants to move on to?
Bad movies. And guess what, Safi? Fateful Findings was more enjoyable than all of these Tom Cruise movies combined.
Yeah, the ones we've watched so far.
No, all of them.
Well, what about this American Made movie?
Better than that. Better than that. More enjoyable and entertaining.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And entertaining if you want to laugh at something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like that scene, just that scene alone where he's sitting there in his office and he's eating a plate of spinach, and that blonde girl,
she's no dressing on it or anything. It's like what I always complain about when I'm having salad. I'm just eating some leaves, so let's go outside and pick some leaves off a bush and just put them in a bowl. Let's call it our lunch, okay?
And then
that's what it was like.
That blonde girl just stares at him like, God, what did I sign up for with this movie?
I know. I just couldn't believe it. Why would you do that? No semblance, no spices, no nothing on the salad.
That
was
just
leaves.
That's like basics.
Leaves.
Like you could go to Kroger and get like a $3 salad from the salad bar.
Well, yeah. I just, it's just. Anyway, we're diversing. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and then please become one of our subscribers. We welcome new subscribers. We welcome your commentary. If you saw The Mummy, this Tom Cruise mummy, let us know. What did you think about it? And what other mummy movies have you seen? And how did it compare? Because basically that's why Marco actually took us through this little mummy history, or history of making mummy movies. And so you could have a basis of comparison. And we had plenty of basis of comparison to this. And just any good movie as a basis of comparison to this bad movie. So anyway, goodbye everybody.